Добър ден, здравейте, приятели! Аз съм Огнян Атанасов, вицепрезидент на КНСБ. Днес ще направим нашия пореден подкаст по една изключително важна тема, свързана с справедливия преход. Малко ще ви изненадаме, ще говорим не само за енергетиката, но ще говорим и за индустрията. Имаме честа да бъдем гости на един международен семинар на страни от Централна и Източна Европа, както и от Балканският регион, с които дискутираме проблемите, с които се сблъскват в тези страни с въвеждането на зелената сделка, мероприятията, как да бъдат защитени работниците, как се справят енергетиката и индустрията с всички тези промени, които се случват напоследък, особено във връзка с тази сложна геополитическа ситуация в страната. So I will switch in English to present my guest. So dear, today's seminar Just Transition brings together representatives from Central and Eastern Europe and Balkan region to discuss the challenges of transition towards a low carbon economy. So I'm pleased to welcome Ludovik Voet.
Hello.
Hello, Ludo, confederal secretary of ETUC, and Kalina Arabaджиева, research at the European Trade Union Institute. She will present for us the project of directive of just transition. So let's start with Ludo, I propose. So I would like to invite you to present the objective of this project that we discussed today. We are all aligned on the understanding that the transition to low carbon economy will not be sustainable without social justice and protection of workers. So can you explain us more about this project?
Yeah, so thank you. It's a pleasure to be here in Sofia and to have a seminar with all the colleagues from the region. I think it's really important for the trade unions to gather and to discuss such important issues that are affecting our jobs, our workers, our economy. I think the question is that it's quite clear. The question is not if we should go to a low carbon economy. The question is how, and what matters for workers is how. It's that they should be in the leading seat in designing the policies that affect them. So it's crucial that we exchange, that we strategize together, that we see where we are, where the biggest challenges are, and there are a lot of challenges we see in the region that are different from the challenges that we can see in other parts of Europe. There are also similarities. But the most important for us was to gather and to hear the voice of workers here in the region, to bring this back to Brussels, that it's not Brussels to Sofia, but that it's Sofia to Brussels. That should be the way policy making should be done.
So you hear the people from this, the workers from this country. So according to you, what are the biggest risks for workers from Central and Eastern European countries for this? I think that the words just transition, the people don't like this word. And what do you think?
Yeah, that's a discussion we had already yesterday and today. It's that, in fact, the wording "just transition" is what we desire, but we see that's it's not what is happening. So, just transition policies, if it's only to compensate for workers losing their jobs, this will never build the trust that we should go to the low carbon economy. So, this is not the way how to proceed. So, the question is, how do we put trade unions at the table? And there, it's just transition has to be about trade unions having the leading seats. The DNA of just transition is trade unions having their voice heard, and that they should not be left behind. And this wording, not being left behind, has been a slogan for 7 years, but in reality, you don't see this materialize. So the precondition for not being left behind is first to be heard. So it means trade unions at the table, it means social dialogue to discuss the transitions, and this is exactly what is not happening. So what you see is in most of Central and Eastern Europe countries, we already see that 1/3 of restructuring processes are not discussed with trade unions. There's no consultation of trade unions. So how can you then convince workers or even reskill them for other jobs if they are not even trade union consultation of these workers? In some countries, there's not really an employer organization to speak to. So it makes also that it's difficult. In most of the countries of the region, there's a low collective bargaining coverage, which makes also that it's quite difficult to bring the dimension that just transition should be about rights. And so without collective bargaining, how can workers have rights? So that's for the part on employers. But when we look at government, and we had also discussions on that, is that you have often governments wanting to put programs of just transition, but consultation of workers is really like a tick the box exercise in most of the case. So I'm not saying it's happening like that everywhere, but it's a general trend that consulting workers is a tick the box. So what workers want and what are the risks thus in the region is that they would be left behind, that there would be phase out of jobs without the phase in of jobs, and that's exactly what should not happen. Workers can engage in discussion on the transition, but there should be the necessary investments, there should be the necessary reskilling programs, there should be the safety nets, the social security systems that allows to secure the employment pathways of workers when they are phased out of jobs, and that the phase-in of new jobs arrive also at the same moment. So that's the only way that workers can really align with the need to have clean industrial jobs. Yes, we need clean industrial jobs, and this is why we also need to maybe a little bit de-zoom the discussion that is a lot on coal. On how do we phase out coal, and it's an important discussion. Of course, miners want to have a jobs. That's normal. Their regions live on that. They fill their fridge with the jobs that they have in these regions, and all these regions are depending on them. So it's really important that people have a future in their region. It's not, as we said yesterday, it's not important to have a global European net creation of jobs of 2 million if it means that you lose in regions where people just have to leave and migrate to other countries. This will not convince people. They need solutions in their region, and for that you need to, yes, we need economic diversification, but we need then to have reindustrialization in Europe, and that's something that is coming back in the discussion that is quite positive also, even if Europe could be franker on really putting in place the necessary framework for that. But yes, we want green steel. Yes, we want clean aluminium. We need clean glass industry. All the industries can go to decarbonation if there's really massive investment for that. But what we see is that, of course, in Central and Eastern Europe, the financial framework for the investment is not there. The protection of jobs is not there. The collective bargaining is not sufficient. The social dialogue is not sufficient. So there's no real safety for workers in these regions that the decisions will be taking into account their interests. They feel, and that's what we hear, that decisions are taken in headquarters in other countries with different logics also. Shareholder dividends takes often the prevalence on the jobs of workers and the future of their communities, and this is not what will build the support for the green transition. So this is important things that we will come back to Brussels with to say, maybe to conclude on that is what we heard also, workers are told they should requalify. Yes, they know that, but requalify for which job? You cannot speak about skills policy without speaking about what are the exact jobs we will have in the country. So we need to reindustrialize our countries. We need to clean these industries, but thus you need creation of jobs, and you need a future for these workers.
Yes, thank you. This afternoon I will present our mapping of skills of miners and workers in this region. and you can see that the workers want exactly this. So, Kalina, unfortunately, in Bulgaria we have a bad example. We closed 2 power plants. One was a year ago, and one will close next month. So this is approximately 700 people. They lose their job. In the industry, we have last 3 months 3 or 4 biggest factories that closed, approximately 1,000 people. So according unions, just transition requires not only climate targets, but also a clear social framework and concrete guarantees for people. This is why we expect the Just Transition Directive to protect people legally, because we have no this legal document to protect people when we close the factory, etc. Please tell us about this project of Just Transition. What is the situation now? When will be fact this directive will be fact this directive, etc. Please.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the kind invitation. It's a pleasure to be here and also to be part of this project and be here in my hometown with you. So just a short introduction to the initiative for a Just Transition Directive. So this is an initiative driven by the trade unions, starting from the national level, in fact, and being taken to the European level. And it is essentially a demand for a European legal framework to anticipate and manage change linked to transitions in general, but in particular the green and digital transitions. And this needs to be a legislation that protects workers and supports social dialogue and collective bargaining in this area. So this is one of the measures that is really missing from the climate and industrial policy of the EU. So in general, its aims threefold. So one is to guarantee minimum support for or minimum protection for workers affected by the transition, to support the development of skills, career transitions, but also the right to remain in employment, and also to encourage social dialogue and collective bargaining. And one of the things that's, we think is incredibly important, what you just mentioned, is that it contains rights, not just promises. It contains real rights for workers. And this also means obligations for member states and also for employers and for enterprises. And there are many things in the directive proposals, but I'll just mention the main ones. So one of the things that we talked a lot about over the last days is the fact that what's really missing is a strategy, a long-term strategy to achieve just transition at the national or regional level. So this is really one of the aims of this directive, to require member states to put in place a strategic plan for just transition.
National plan for
at the national, national level. Yes, national
a
national plan for just transition, together with the social partners. And this means real involvement of the social partners, not just symbolic consultation, so that there is some kind of vision for the development of the affected regions and for the workers and for their future. There also needs to be plans at the level of the enterprise as well, developed with the participation of the workers and their representatives, of course, so that we can anticipate and have a structured management of the change to ensure that we minimize the loss of jobs and to build these long-term strategies. And at the same time, back to rights, the directive should require that workers and trade unions have broader rights to information and consultation when it comes to these plans, so that they have a stronger voice with what's happening to them. For every worker to have the right to paid training in working time without loss of without loss of income, and so that redundancies are
Which
really
is very important
Yeah.
for us.
yeah, and so the redundancies are really a question of last
Yeah.
resort. So first we prioritize other ways of keeping jobs, keeping people in place, whether it's qualifications, retraining, redeployment in other parts of the organization, and so on. So, and this is the third point. It's also an obligation of the member states to develop plans for professional requalification and education, which really contribute to employment, to increasing employment and career development. So they really need to respond to the needs of workers and the needs of the labor market. And of course, the final thing, which is I think is the most important thing, is collective bargaining.
Yeah.
So the directive would require member states to actively promote the development of collective bargaining in relation to the green and digital transitions, so that the social partners can bargain on fair conditions and to protect employment. So again, the idea here is for this directive to build on what's already been achieved by the directive on adequate minimum wages, which is of course the requirement for member states to increase collective bargaining coverage to 80%, including by increasing the capacity of trade unions and social partners in general for collective bargaining, defending trade union rights, and so on. So these are the main points.
Yeah. Thank you, Kalina. Last question from me. How the workers, how we can participate in all of this process to be sure that our rights will be protected in these documents. How? What we strike maybe, or
Yeah, why not? If you can decide this, that would be great. But I think the key problem is that, yes, we have a Just Transition Directive draft on the table, so that the trade union is proposing, and of course it's not existing in legislation now. So, but there has been a first step, that is the European Parliament vote in January this year to say that there's a need for having a Just Transition Directive. So this is increasing the pressure on the European Commission to present it. It doesn't mean they will. But there's an opportunity that they will, because we are in consultation on the Quality Jobs Act, which will discuss digitalization, anticipation of change, different elements of quality of jobs linked to health and safety, etc. And where we are trying to push the question of just transition there to, we want the Commission to propose provisions that would ensure the rights of workers in the transitions, because without these rights, workers will not have their say. And that's, as Kalina presented, it's also being heard before decisions are taken. That's the most important. It's that and that's the word anticipation, is that we cannot let employers just decide, yes, to go to climate neutrality, I will fire people and I will invest differently, and I will attract new people that will not be the same, with not the same skills. We need to work with the workers that are in the companies in order to find opportunities for them to get the jobs of tomorrow. Yes, maybe of course cleaner jobs, but and with different skills. But you need to have the time. Having the time is the most important. The problem is that with climate action, we don't have a lot of time, but we have to take the time for the social dimension to be taken into account, so that employers consult workers on where these workers can go, what type of investment can be done. And to have that, we will need to force member states to also act. So that's where I think trade unions, well, at European level, we are doing the work towards the European Parliament. We are trying to push the Commission to present something, but then when this will be on the table, if we are successful, this will need negotiations, and we know how difficult the discussion at European level for the moment is with member states. And that's where there's discussions on, should you need a directive or not? Yes, we need a directive at European level to have minimum rights in the transition, because when the Commission does a recommendation to member states, they don't implement just transition. We have the example of the Commission did in 2022 a recommendation on fair transitions. Only one country did put in place fair framework for just transition, and this is Spain. And it doesn't mean that in Spain everything is perfect, but it's the only country that did put in place a concrete framework for anticipation of change, consultation of trade unions in the transition. All the rest, they received the recommendation, they did not put in place the necessary framework. So yes, we need binding legislation, and trade unions will have to say, if you want us you need us at the table to support to have a real just transition. It cannot be without us.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
If I may? Yes.
Please.
No, thank you very much for that. I couldn't agree more. And this is where, we come back to, this is why we need legally enforceable rights. Because of course, the strongest, I think, tool that we have is mobilizing, being together, showing solidarity. But I do think legal rights are very important. And I do think perhaps, coming back to the discussion that we're having today, I think they're also particularly important in this region of Central and Eastern Europe, where collective bargaining, trade union density, collective bargaining coverage, and organizing is at the moment less developed. And I think this is where this kind of framework could make a real difference, because you can go to the government and you can say, well, actually, this is my right, and I can take it to court. I can take it to Brussels, or whatever it is, because I think here it's one of the most affected regions, and it's there are not these frameworks in place, and this is I think where it really could make a really big difference. It really opens an opportunity for workers and trade unions to have a foothold in the enterprise and in social dialogue, to take part, to really have a say in what really affects them. So I think, it's a good time, as Ludwig said, it's a really good time to campaign for this and stand together.
Yeah, sure. So, if you want to say something.
No, indeed, a good conclusion. I think we're in a moment where we need to increase the pressure for that, and it's clear that the political momentum at EU level is not really going in this direction, and unfortunately even in the other direction. When we spoke about just transition, a lot of people maybe know the Just Transition Fund that was created 7 years ago. It might, so it was not sufficiently funded. It could not really, it was 17 billion euro, while Germany, the phase out of coal, was 40 billion euro. So you see the comparison. It shows that the Just Transition Fund could not create the jobs of tomorrow, clearly not. And the problem is that even now, in the new proposal of EU budget, there's no funding for Just Transition anymore. So it means what is on the table, was already not sufficient, but it might be worse if we are not active to have a Just Transition Directive, but also a EU budget that really invests in the regions, that the most affected regions can have funding for cohesion, for convergence, and that we also solve the question of investment. All our regions need investment, and Central and Eastern Europe even more, to modernize our industries and to bring back industries. And in order to, if we want to clean these industries, we need to invest and modernize. So without money, without public investment, without private investment, all of this will be a fairy tale.
So our job is to explain our members all these things, because very often they can't understand well how is the process, what we will achieve with this. So we have to work with our people. So, dear colleagues, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you again. I propose when you come again in Bulgaria.
With pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.